Welcome back to the Suck Less Tomorrow podcast. I'm Carlton Glassford. I've been in education for nearly 2 decades, and this show is built around one simple idea. None of us have teaching completely figured out. Every week, I sit down with teachers, administrators, and other people associated with education to talk honestly about what works, what fails, and what we're still trying to get better at. Because the goal isn't perfection. The goal is to suck less tomorrow. Today's guest is Gabriel Hannans, better known as the Indomitable Black Man. Gabriel is a special educator, behavior specialist, foster parent, and parenting coach who has spent more than a decade working with children with ADHD, autism, emotional and behavioral disorders, and other unique needs. In this episode, we talk about student behavior, parenting, self-regulation, classroom management, special education, and why so many adults misunderstand what children's behavior is actually communicating. We also get into foster parenting, discipline, sensory needs, and practical strategies that can help both teachers and parents build stronger relationships with kids. This is one of those conversations that's going to challenge how you think about behavior. So sit back and enjoy. Welcome back to the Suck Less Tomorrow podcast. I'm your host, Carlton Glassford. Joining me today is Gabriel Hannans. You may know him as the Indomitable Black Man. And today we're going to talk about parenting and teaching and anything else that might come up. So Gabriel, welcome to the show. Please tell us about yourself and a little bit about your background.
Oh God, everybody asks me that. And I never really know how to respond. I'm the Indomitable Black Man, also known as Gabriel, or the inverse of that, the reverse of that, whatever. I have a background in special education and applied behavioral analysis. I've worked with children professionally for about just over a decade, and that's what I do.
Yeah. How did you decide to become like a parenting coach? Because I saw you have like sessions people can sign up for, right? And you do things like that. So how did that come about?
Whoa. So actually, my entire life, I did not anticipate working with children in this capacity. I wanted to go into oncology research. That was what my initial major was in college, biomedical sciences. I was going to go for infectious disease and oncology research. And just through a series of adventures and misadventures, I fell into education and applied behavioral analysis. I was working as a registered behavioral technician. So I worked with kids who had ADHD, autism, ODD, and I made a video on TikTok one day where a gentleman was talking to his daughter. His daughter was being very disrespectful and not cleaning up. And so he, in his frustration, grabs a guitar and smashes her TV. I explained what he should have done instead. And that video went viral and people just wanted more advice. So I started telling them based on the expertise that I had. And here we are today.
That's awesome. Yeah. So I did not see that video. What should he have done differently?
So whenever, what the function was,
TV, sorry. Sorry.
TV. No, you're good.
Yeah.
So the first thing is one, self-regulation. Like, your kid says something frustrating. It's really not that big a deal. Disrespect is not as big as you make it out to be. Regulate. Second thing, she doesn't want to clean up her room. Okay. That's the function. It could be because it's too hard. It could be that there's a lot of stuff on the floor. She doesn't know where to start. It could be that she's distracted by the TV or the game that she's playing. It could be pick something. The best thing to do is to break the chore down into smaller bites. And then once she finishes one task, like pick up all your clothes and put them in the hamper, pick up all your trash and put it in the trash bin, pick up all your toys and put it in the toy chest. When you break the chores down like that, it makes it less insurmountable. It's something that you can accomplish, and then give a break and reinforce in between. So, when she puts all the clothes in the hamper, say, oh my God, good job. Great. Whatever. Take a 2-minute break. All right. Now let's come back. Let's pick up all the toys and put them in the toy chest. It's teaching them how to break big tasks into smaller tasks. And then eventually that teaches the skill of prioritization, of self-regulation, organization. It teaches so many different skills. So don't freak out. And just break things down.
Yeah, I talk a lot about this. I don't know if you're familiar with Teaching with Love and Logic or not, but it's a book that I really talk about all the time. And it kind of uses like brain science and choices for like working with students. They have a Parenting with Love and Logic as well, but I've only read the teaching one. But like a big part of it is like kids' brains aren't fully developed, right? Like they don't make decisions the way adults do. And one of the lines in the book is like, whenever there's a argument, like there should always be an adult in the conversation, and that should be you. You should be the adult. I think about that like with my son. We just tried a new thing. He would like dump toys out and just like leave them there. And I'm working with a behavioral person with him, and they're like, well, see if he just needs attention, right? Like ask him like, do you want me to play with you? And then I don't know if that's something you've sort of noticed that too. It's like the kids are dumping stuff, like they want that like reinforcement, right? I mean, they're kids.
Yes,
Yeah.
they don't have the ability to communicate the way we do.
Mhm.
And so it's up to us as adults to be observant enough to understand the behavior or the language of their behavior. And that's kind of something that I harp on a lot.
Yeah.
Understand that your child is communicating to you through their behavior. Once you understand their behavior by paying attention to them, you're able to see that they're saying a whole bunch of different things. You're able to articulate and help them. They're borrowing your prefrontal cortex.
Mm-hmm.
Let them borrow it, but then teach them the skill to where they can move independently on their own. So it really is using logic and love, like you were saying, or rather the book is saying.
Yeah. It's funny because in my book that I wrote, like I have a section on, it's just called like, why do babies cry? And it's just about like, they can't communicate their needs. And then it's like, why do kids act out in the classroom? Because they can't communicate they don't have the language to say, I'm really not understanding this math problem. And so I'm going to act out, I think that's a big one. Yeah.
Exactly.
So selfishly, I wanted to talk about, I'm an older dad. I didn't have my kid till I was 40 and he's 3 now. So, and I was wondering if your work with parents, if you have seen a difference with older versus younger parents, besides like the obvious things. And mostly I just want to be reinforced that I did the right thing. But, I was just wondering, I'm like, I wonder if like with his work with parents and doing stuff, like, has he noticed a lot of key differences or not? Like, I see people waiting more and more to have kids. If you have anything to weigh in on that.
So I wanted to have kids when I was 23. I thank God I did not have kids when I was 23. Jesus Christ. What I've noticed is that when you have parents who have younger children, their patience is a lot more thin versus parents who are older, who waited to have kids. They have more life experience. They have more patience. They have more wisdom, and they're able to raise their kids in a completely different pattern. You have parents who are in their stride when they're in their 30s and 40s, where they're more established, where there's less stress in raising the child, versus someone who's in their early 20s, when they're just getting started in life, they're trying to hit their stride and they're missing a lot of different things because their brains aren't even fully developed yet.
Right.
So there is definitely a difference, but in that there's nuance, because you also have older parents who are holding on to very archaic styles of parenting where they're just as curt with their kids. They're very disrespectful to them. They still hit them. And you have younger parents who are learning, I don't want to do the same thing that my parents did. And so they're moving away from those abusive habits and they're engaging more in conscious parenting styles as opposed to the older counterparts. So it kind of is twofold, and it really depends on, I guess, location, environment, access to the information. So it 6 of one, half a dozen in the other.
So I was going to talk about this later, but I'll skip to it because I remember watching one of your videos where you were talking about how like a child's brain doesn't know the difference when it comes to hitting, right? Like that their cortisol is going up and stuff. And I have a friend who is convinced that young toddlers who are like maybe trying to run into the street or touch a hot stove or whatever it might be, you can't reason with them. And so you should give them a little swat. And I was thinking maybe we could debunk that about why that is not the appropriate way. And then maybe for anyone who also feels that way, because I also have talked to other adults who are like, no, like if they can't communicate, that's the way to let them know, what they should be doing instead.
So a lot of times, and this is what I try to get parents to understand, there is a strong emotional connection with children that immediately triggers us. It sends us into fight or flight, and our in the moment reflex is to hit them so we can try to get them to understand that this isn't right. And it's a conditioning almost. But when we look at it logically, the kids are probably going to continue doing the same thing because we haven't taught them something different. To them, you just hit me. I don't know why. Was I running? Was I, I don't know why I'm being hit. They can't put this specific action to getting hit. They don't know that the street can kill them. Hitting them isn't going to teach them that lesson. They just got hit for running, and that's all they know. Same thing with touching a stove. They don't have a concept of being burnt. They just see that they were putting their hands towards something, you hit them. What did you do that for? What's a better method of explanation? I saw this video by Laura Love. She's a content creator on TikTok. Brilliant person. She's a younger mom. She has 2 boys. Montessori, but this specific video she did, she was doing it with her younger child who was about 2 or 3. and she's holding him next to the stove. Now, mind you, both of these boys cook with real instruments on real stoves. She's holding his hand and she's showing him that at this distance, this heating element, it feels nice, feels good. She put his hand closer to the heat. And as it got closer, he felt that it started to get uncomfortable. And when she put it really close, he moved his hand away. What she did in that moment was show him that, yes, something can feel nice from a distance. When you get closer, it can hurt. So do we want to touch it or do we want to stay away? His own experience with not touching it, but also not being shied away from it, let him know that this is something that I don't want to touch. He doesn't burn himself on the stove, which is why he's 4 and 5 and he's operating a stove. And he'd been doing it since he was like 3. Oh, wow. Same thing with his older brother. So when we're hearing the idea of, I just got to pop my kid, you're doing it because, one, it's your own trigger. You're afraid, which is fine. That's a neutral thing, but it doesn't teach anything. And then 2, it's convenient for you. You want short-term compliance, but what is that doing in the long term? Now, is that something small? Yes. People will say, oh, well, I'm a conscious parent. I just pop them if they do something like that. Okay, sure, whatever. But if we're looking at long-term understanding of brain development, you want to show them why this is a problem in a way that they can understand. She had a great example of that. This stove is hot, you can burn yourself. With the car, I wouldn't even focus on the kid running out in the street. I'd be focusing on, why is the child running away from me? Why can't the kid walk next to me? Let's train this child how to walk with me and not let my hand go. Those are the things that we want to be focusing on more.
Those are great points. So you started out in medicine. So besides being conscious of the germs when working with children, how has, I assume that's something, how has this new line of, giving the advice, doing the parenting, like really influenced your own, you said you waited to have kids, right? So you do have children? Is that?
I foster.
Oh, you foster. Okay.
I don't have any of my own yet. Not in this economy. Gas is almost $5. No.
In this economy? Yeah. But how does it help with you fostering then and working with children or in your more professional capacity? Like, how has this sort of influenced your own style of doing things?
Man, because I had these 2 teen boys. And these 2 teen boys they were a handful. I was the RBT that people called to work with very aggressive teenagers, teens and boys, little boys like 7 up to 18. That's who I worked with. And you think your kid talking back to you is deserving of a spanking. You think you should pop them in the lips because they talk back to you. I dealt with kids that would kick you in your chest. I had a 6-year-old kick me like he was Leonidas and I was one of the messengers from Xerxes. I kicked me in my chest, standing like I've had one of my locks pulled out. I've been spit on. I've been kicked. And I'm talking like donkey kick in the shin. A couple weeks ago, the 5-year-old I was working with when I was teaching preschool, special education preschool, he cocked back and punched me right in the groin. In those moments where I can easily grab, I'm 6'9".
Yeah. Oh, wow.
I can easily grab one of these children and yeet them into orbit. Would not be hard. I had to learn what self-regulation looks like. And that comes out when I'm working with these kids. Everybody knows intellectually how to calm down, but it's one thing to know, and then there's another thing to practice. And I have practiced with hundreds of kids across a decade in different environments with different scenarios. I'm well trained.
Yeah.
So when I got these foster kids, and one is trying to tear up my house, one is having a psychotic episode, one literal psychotic episode, one is having a whole meltdown and he's like 6'6" and just as lanky as I am, and he's having a whole freak out moment. In those moments, I cannot freak out. In those moments, I cannot punish with punitively. I cannot do the things that most parents would assume that you would do to correct the behavior. It won't work. I see that it won't work. I have evidence that it won't work. And so I had to learn very early how to put myself in their shoes, how to think like them, but then how to also keep my background of how I was raised from coming forward to impose that on them. I had to raise them based on who they were and what issues they have. And I had to bridge that gap. And it was not easy. It's a struggle. It is a struggle wholeheartedly, but it's a necessary thing.
Nice. So hearing you, one, that's amazing. I'm so glad you're really as I'm wearing, I used to be a CASA. And so I'm really glad that you're working with the youth who really need the help like that. But in those moments, or I was thinking about, my own sort of not perfect childhood. And so how, those teenagers are going to grow up, right? And then how do you advise, or would you advise someone to break the cycle, right? Because if that's what they had, what they were used to before they came to you, right? What advice would you have for someone who comes to you and is like, I'm struggling with my kid and I don't like the parent I am, but it's how I was raised, how do you do that?
Oh, well, the first thing I do is I ask them how they enjoyed being handled when they were children. Was it effective? In a lot of cases, they're like, oh, well, it turned out fine.
I hear that all the time.
But you're here. If we started to dive deep into your daily habits, I would probably see some sort of substance abuse. I would probably see a certain level of self-hatred or self-loathing. I would see some onset diagnosis of maybe anxiety or something like that was caused by what happened when you were younger. I would see all of these different types of habits. So the question then becomes, do you want to continue in the same way that your parents did? That's the first step. Once you can admit it, I can help you. After that, what is triggering you about what's happening in your environment? And let's shift how you perceive what's happening. Is your kid disrespectful and talking back? Why is that making you so upset? Are they saying something that's true? And then you're like, whoa, hold on, I feel vulnerable. Can you humble yourself enough to accept what your kid is saying? Do you know how to redirect them? So I try to first get them to understand it has to be an unlearning first.
Yeah.
Can you admit that the way you were raised wasn't the best and still love your parents? Can you recognize that you might still have a lot of those preconceived notions because they were conditioned into you? Do you want to do something different? Now let's shift your mindset. Let's unlearn everything that you thought was correct and let me show you something different. But until then, I can't really do much with you.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like that old joke about how many psychiatrists or whatever does it take to change a light bulb. First, the light bulb has to want to change. I don't know if you ever heard that. It seems like, right? That's what you got to be willing to do the work. It also, relating this back to teaching, it sounds like, not as extreme, and I don't want to compare the two of having an abusive childhood to teaching, but how often like teachers are like, well, this is how I was taught, or this is how I was, how school discipline. I remember back in my day, this, that, or the other. And it just seems like that's sort of the same thing. Like, well, did you like being taught that way? Was that the most effective way you could learn? I have a good friend who follows you and has some, and I asked her, I said, hey, he's coming on my podcast. Is there anything you'd want to ask? And if you don't mind, for some shelling out some free advice, I'll ask you what she wanted to know. She said, I have 2 boys that are diagnosed with sensory processing disorder, one going into kindergarten and one going into 4th grade. Would you recommend getting IEPs for children immediately if they have a diagnosis, or waiting till they're in like 3rd or 4th grade?
Immediately.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is because hear me when I say this, and trust me, the schools will not necessarily say it, because to the mindset of the schools, they don't have the resources necessary to work with your specific child individually. When you have an IEP, it tells the school your child is now federally protected. They have to have accommodations and modifications to help them have access to the same level of education as a neurotypical child. If you are allowing your child to go through life and they're just white knuckling the whole thing, you're going to have a bad time. Ask me how I know. I was not diagnosed with ADHD until I was a grown man, until my last semester of college for special education. That's when I realized I had ADHD and finally got help for it. And immediately after I had it, I was able to soar. When you have access to an IEP, you have access to all sorts of resources, all sorts of accommodations to help your child be successful in the school system. If you don't have it, there's no record per se, other than his grades, that they can produce. That how are they going to show that they know something? How are they going to show that there's an issue? Growing up, everybody just thought I was lazy. They thought I was a problem child. I didn't really have behavioral issues, but I had a lot of organizational issues. I had a lot of issues meeting deadlines and due dates. because I have ADHD. And I'm the poster child of it. And I got in a lot of trouble. I got my behind toe up quite a bit for things that were a result of having ADHD. Had I had the modifications and accommodations in the school setting, I would have done far better than I did without it. So I definitely recommend, as soon as your child is old enough to get evaluated, get your child evaluated. Most public schools will evaluate your child for free, I think, after the age of 6. But at that time, that's when that evaluation can tell if your child has things like dyscalculia or dyslexia or sensory processing disorder or autism, ADHD, any type of intellectual or neurological or behavioral issue. They can spot it early, and early intervention is how you can change the course of your child's life and get them the help they need. So please be very active in your child's schooling. Don't be combative, advocate, but recognize that even the school has a limit on what they can do. But when you get an IEP or a 504, it can help them get the help that they need and help teach teachers how to teach your child.
Great. That's awesome. Yeah, I agree with you completely. The sooner the better. And the legal, like you said, the modifications and accommodations. I think there's a misnomer amongst teachers. Let me know if this has been your experience, where they think that IEPs or 504s like make it uneven for students. And they're like, oh, whenever I do X, they always get an A on the test. And it's like, you mean when you give them what they need to be successful, they are successful? Has that been your experience working with non-special ed teachers at all? Or
I wish a teacher would say that to me, because they would get such a tongue lashing. They know better. I'd better never hear somebody say something stupid like that.
I have a friend who heard that exactly. She's a special ed teacher, and she was working with a teacher, and she said the teacher was like, well, whenever I give them separate setting, they always come back with like really great grades on their test or whatever. And I don't trust, but when I do it to them in class, they don't score as high. And so they like accused sort of the special ed, and it's like, well, yeah, like they should be scoring better when you give them what they need. To that point, I think this is a two-parter, that in general, and I hate to say this, but schools are not always great at meeting all of the accommodations on a student's IEP. And I guess I would say, what advice would we have for teachers to try to make sure they do that, besides just like, hey, follow the letter, but here's the reasoning behind that. And then earlier, when you were talking about my friend, you said, keeping up on it. How would you recommend, like, how should a parent sort of check in on their students' accommodations or modifications? How often should they be contacting teachers or the school without, becoming, like you said, not being a nuisance or aggressive? But so two parts. What's the reason if a teacher's like, how do we convince them you got to do these things besides it's the law? And then if you're a parent, how do you follow up on it, and how often would you recommend?
Okay, I'm going to answer the latter first, because I got ADHD, so I'm going to have to come back to the first one. But the question about parents and keeping up with IEPs, first off, every year your child should be getting an annual IEP evaluation. So every year you should be going to an IEP meeting or a 504 meeting where you're updating their goals that your child is supposed to be reaching, that the teachers are supposed to be working to accomplish in the classroom. That should be updated yearly. Accommodations and modifications have to be updated yearly as well. When they get to be about 14, there should be a transition where they're starting to transition into the real world. So what are their goals towards that as well? And then that's how teachers and parents can be on the same page with getting your child to the next phase of their life. So every year you should also get a printed copy of your IEP or 504. You can bring anybody you want to your IEP or 504 meeting. Do not let them tell you otherwise. You can bring whomever you would like. You can be an attorney. It can be an advocate. It can be your cousin Day from down the street. If they're involved with your child, you can bring them to the meeting. And you can get a printed copy of your child's IEP or 504. So I have a company, and I do educational resources, and I do educational consulting. And here's the biggest reason why education is the way it is, and why a lot of teachers believe that. It's systemic. Education is designed to create people to fit into a specific mold, so that when they get out into the real world, whether they decide to go to college or they decide to go out into the real world, into the job force, they look a particular way, they can get a job, and they can be a part of society. That's it. What happens is you have more kids who have these issues, but you're still wanting to put them into this box. Every concept that we have, the fact that we have school that's 8 hours a day, conditioning them to fit into a job format. The fact that they have to walk with their hands either behind their back or by their side, or doing like this, or all this kind of stuff, order so that you can fit into this box. So when teachers see a kid that cannot fit neatly in this box, they're automatically a problem because they've only been taught how to work with kids who fit neatly into this box. Little Janie over here, who sits quietly for multiple hours on end and does her work and raises her hand and asks questions, is a much better student to this teacher than little Johnny over here, who has ADHD and just does whatever he wants whenever he wants to do it because he can't sit still and focus for so long. So when you put little Johnny in an environment where it's more tactile, where he can move around, where he has preferential seating, where he has breaks, where he has the opportunity to actually learn the way his brain wants him to, he's going to learn. Just like little Janie. Little Janie is in her stride. She can learn the way she wants, just like this. Little Johnny cannot. But we want little Johnny to look like little Janie, so we try to make him fit into this mold, and that's not how it works. So the best thing you can do for teachers who are outside of that concept is to provide more understanding of how this system functions and understand that little Johnny will not learn no matter how hard you try in this situation. So you have to modify the environment so that he can learn too. If little Johnny had a broken leg and he's in a wheelchair, you can't expect him to roll up some steps. You have to build a ramp. So the IEP in 504 is the ramp that he can use to access the same thing that Janie can. It's all systemic.
It's great. I never really thought of it that way with about it, the systemic. It's all because like what you're saying too is it's not even like individual teachers' faults per se, right? It's that they've been programmed to look for the box. And that, because that's how we, I don't know about, I assume like me, like that's how we went to school. You were supposed to be in this box. And, when you stepped outside of the box, it was not great. And it was reacted poorly. The box. I didn't even think about that. All right. Quick pause here. If you've been enjoying the conversation on this podcast, my book, Suck Less in the Classroom Tomorrow, Honest Advice for Teachers in Their First Years, is available right now from Routledge and other online retailers. It's a practical, honest book written for teachers who are trying to improve without pretending perfection exists. All right, back to the episode. So in my book, I talk about when I snapped one day with my classroom, and I feel like this relates to the parenting side of reflection. And I think, I don't know if you're going to reiterate, but I took this meter stick and I was yelling at my class and I slapped it on the desk and a piece broke off and went flying through the air. And I was like, oh, this is how my career ends in my first year teaching, and since then I have learned a lot about trying to self-regulate. I remember coming to work one day and telling someone I work with, I was like, I see why people can snap. And so in the classroom or with your kids, is it just like is it take some breaths? Is it walk away? Is it don't deal with it right now in the moment? Is it count to 10? Or are all those things cliche?
Well, all of those things actually work very well. But I think the problem is people don't understand that it's a practice. It's a skill that develops. So when I first started working as an RBT, I was homeless. And I needed a job. There was no, I can't do this correctly. If I lose my job, I lose my livelihood. I'm already in college. I can't afford to lose this job. So I had to learn very quickly how to regulate my emotions. But the problem is a lot of us, 99% of us, have not learned growing up how to regulate our emotions. We learned to suppress them and repress them. And when we got to a certain age where we realized that nobody was going to stop us from lashing out, we started allowing that to come out. But nobody's ever taught us how to let it out in a healthy form or fashion. It was just either shut it down or let it go. And so I had to learn that I can be upset, but that emotion isn't a dictator. It's just an indicator. Just because my check engine light on doesn't mean I have to immediately pull over and open up my hood and, try to fix whatever's wrong with my car. It just means, hey, in the next, couple, months or so, go get your car looked at. In much the same way, that's kind of how our emotions are to us. They're giving us information. They're letting us know, hey, something's not right in this environment. It could be because of trauma. It could be because of sensory overload. For me, when I was teaching in my class, I had 2 classes, and these 2 classes, my 4th period and my 6th period, right after lunch and at the end of the day, my 2 advanced classes were the loudest classes. They were the most unruly. And it was hard for me to manage myself because I have auditory processing issues. And these kids will always be so loud. And I will always just want to just like, but I was like, why am I getting this upset about 45 minutes of my day? They'll be all right. So what I would do is I had to learn how to operate around it. Some of the first things I did is, and this is for me, this worked for me. I will put I would have a Bluetooth earbud in my ear and it will always be playing music, some kind of music. It was tuned out most of the time, but it was always in my ear because if I ever needed to stop and focus, I can just listen to this. I've seen people where they are more somatic. They need some sort of sensory input. So you have people who will like squeeze themselves or rub on their chest or bounce a little bit. I've had people where they have to take a deep breath. I can take a deep breath just like and I'm fine. But that's something that you have to work up to. It's not something you just jump into. It's not something that you do once, think it doesn't work, and then you never do it again. It's something that you have to keep practicing when you're calm and when you're getting frustrated. And it's also learning to listen to your body. And that's another thing people don't like to do. Sit with your body and let it talk to you.
So you're saying it's all right to get angry. It's not okay to react that way, right?
But now I will say this.
Yeah, go ahead.
If you react, the world is not going to end.
Yeah.
I've had those moments where I've lashed out in my class. Like I've had moments where I yelled in my class and then all the kids are like terrified. And I'm looking at them and it takes everything in me not to laugh because I realize how absurd it is. They're kids.
Yeah.
They're not even supposed to be in school. Like it's unnatural for them to be in a school environment. So what am I being so upset about? It's okay. Everything that a kid does is a phase and it'll pass.
Yeah. It's funny because you've kind of brought that up about how unnatural school is. A couple, or at least like hinted at it and then just said it explicitly. I read this book many years ago called like Free to Learn, I think. And it's about like unlearning schools and just like how children do so much better when they're in like mixed age groups and just basically how everything we kind of do. Or there was that video by Sir Ken Robinson, I think his name is. And it's about like the factory line of schools. And like just how everything we're doing is just not the best way, which sucks because we talk about all the time. I'm sure you hear this all the time. Anytime you're working with educators, like data drives decisions. And you're like, no, the data that you pick drives your decisions. But there's so much other data, like, school start times or end times or recess and just things that we're not doing. And it's so frustrating.
Oh God, tell me about it. I don't understand why high school starts so early, middle school starts later, and teenagers have to get up later because they stay up later. Why are they getting up before the sun? Why are little kids getting up before the crack of dawn? But then why are teenagers doing the same? And we can go into, parents have to go to work and the school bus systems and all that. I get it. But that is something that I think we should start taking into account and realizing that, hey, we know better. We have neuroscience. We have fields of science that know how students learn, and the way we're teaching is not how they're supposed to learn.
When I was in high school, I'm pretty sure it was 7:20 is when school started.
Same.
Yeah. And, but the one thing I will say, and I'm not making this as an argument for earlier start time, it has sort of messed with sports because either kids end up missing like all of their last period or, sports start like practice goes till 8:00 and then kids aren't getting home and stuff. And so I don't know what the right answer is there. Maybe just a shorter school day. Maybe that's the right answer. That's novel. That's, it's funny you also talk about your fourth and your sixth because that was my issue this year. Self-control is a finite resource. You run out of self-control through the day. And so the kids are low on self-control. I'm low on self-control. It's just a recipe for disaster and another argument for a shorter school day, I think.
I literally would have to keep snacks in my classroom. That was actually what I was really known for. And one of the reasons why all my students I didn't even know loved me, because I would always have a crap ton of snacks just to give away, because I'm like, y'all are getting in trouble because y'all are either falling asleep in class or y'all are acting out because y'all are hangry. Y'all don't have the resources to continue self-regulating, so you lash out. No, here, have some trail mix, have some chips, have some crap. I don't even care if it's candy. Get some resources in your body so you can continue throughout the day. It's perfectly fine, but not all teachers like that.
No, I never understood why teachers don't let kids eat in their class. Like, as long as it's not a distraction or you're not making a mess, just, let them eat. They're hungry. Would you rather have a hangry kid? Like, it's so much of what we do. It's just, I don't know, just is not in the best practice. One thing I do is I have plants in my room. I have like a oil diffuser, which I don't always use, but I have like a little corner with like pillows and blankets, and because kids get cold. Like my mentality, and you can weigh in on this if I'm doing the right thing, is like to try to mitigate as many of the Maslow needs, like on the lower end, as I can be, so that way I'm not dealing with those issues. So, I have like ally flags and things to let them know, like, hey, you're welcome here. And I have light music playing, like anything I can do to make them feel safe and secure and belong, so I can get rid of those issues and then deal. I mean, is it manipulative? Sure. I'm trying to get you to be relaxed in the classroom, but I'm doing it out of a good place, out of my heart. But
I
like,
can't even say it's manipulative. That's what you should be doing.
Yeah.
There's never going to be a time where it's malicious to meet the need of a human being.
Yeah.
Ever.
That's
like,
true.
I'm going to manipulate you by making sure that you feel safe and secure. Here's some food and water so you don't have to be hungry or dehydrated. No, you're doing that.
Yeah.
Everybody should be doing that.
You're probably right. I mean, I just think because I use the word manipulative because it's a deliberate thing I'm doing. I'm like deliberately making my room more comfortable for kids so they will behave. And that's what I mean by that, I guess, as opposed to, someone down the hall who's just like, come into my operating room with nothing on the walls and, and all that. So I want to see a meta-analysis for that, like a research where we track kids who go into rooms that have like nothing on the wall versus like creative rooms, and see who has better outcomes, I don't know. That'd be a good meta-analysis.
Might be a good paper.
Yeah, good research. I won't do it, but so if someone's listening, hopefully a lot of people are, and they want to get to know more about what you have to offer, I was hoping I could give you some time to sort of pitch your resources and your contacts and like where they can find you, follow you, sign up for any courses or anything like that you might be offering, so you can sort of, tell us what you got going on.
There's so much, and you would ask an ADHD person that. Okay, so I have my first company, which is Massive Video LLC, where I do tutoring, I do parent coaching, shift parenting, shift tutoring, educational resources, educational consulting, advocacy. All of that is one business. Then I have Massive Video Foundation, which is a nonprofit, a 501c3 that is dedicated to making sure that people, students, families, whatever, can afford resources, whether it be tutoring, parent coaching, it can be food, it can be therapy. I don't provide the therapy, but I could pay for you to have access to a therapist. It's making sure that families and students can feel empowered to get the resources they need. Also, different educational institutions, if they don't have the resources to do some sort of training or professional development, I can come out through my 501c3 and provide those resources as well. I've written 3 books.
Oh, awesome.
2 of which are behavioral encyclopedias, one for parents, one for educators. They both have 100 different behaviors, how to correct them, scripts that you can use, what it looks like, neurodivergent, PDA forms of accommodations, like how you can use it for them. All of my social media is _indomitable_black man. I'm not changing my name. And that's me.
So for the uninitiated, and by that I mean me, what is shift? You said shift parenting or shift what does that mean? Shift. What is that?
So you're shifting your mindset. You're shifting your paradigm. I want people to shift from what they have always thought to be true into something that's different. I think that the whole world operates in frameworks and systems. And when we can step outside of that framework or outside of that system, I feel like Morpheus from the Matrix, like
take the different pills. Sure.
Which pill?
Yeah.
And once you take the pill and I show you what reality is outside of the trauma that you've experienced, you can't go back. That's what I try to do.
That's awesome. All right. I did want to know what is the biggest mistake you've come across, or like, maybe mistake's not the right word, but like, what's the biggest, like when I'm watching a classroom, when I used to be an evaluator, I would always see like sort of the same common things. And so I could always be like, let's work on wait time, because no one ever did wait time. What is one of the biggest things you see parents or teachers doing that you just constantly see and you're like, there it is again. Or is there not one?
Not developing a good enough relationship with the children. And what I mean by that, and I said it before, understanding the language of the child's behavior. The reason why I have any child any child, I'd say, okay, almost every child that I've ever worked with, I have a good relationship with those kids because I take the time to observe them enough to understand what their behavior is saying. Every child. And once you get to that point as a parent or as a teacher, because every child is developing, like even if you're a parent and you've had your child for 10 years, your child is changing every day. You're changing every day. So the same likes and thoughts that they had when they were 2 is not going to be the same that they have when they're 3 or 4 or 10 or 20. So it's always making sure that you're intentional with understanding who your child is at every given moment. And that only comes through intimacy, like having those moments where you're asking them questions, you're putting yourself in their world, getting to know who they are every single day. And that's teachers and that's parents.
So
and
not just doing the how was school today, but really getting them to talk about what they did. What did you learn today? What did you like today? Or maybe what made you happy today? Maybe even more based or deep than that. I don't know. My kids, it's funny because he's 3 years old and he'd come home from preschool and I'd say, what did you do in school today? And he'd go, nothing. And I'm like, who taught him to do that? Like, he's not a teenager. How does he's like, nothing. And I'm like, you're 2.5 and you're already saying you did nothing at school today? Like, I mean, am I failing as a parent? I don't know, but
no, not at all. And I think that's the best part. Like, the question isn't a bad question. The question could just be posed differently. He doesn't have the vocabulary to tell you, oh, we played with colors today and we talked about how this color and this number and this, he don't know. Yeah. But you can say something like, hey, did you learn about letters today? What color did you learn about? Who are your friends at school? What did your teacher say? Did you like what she was wearing or what he was wearing? Something like that, where it gets them to ask more specific, clarifying questions.
Now, I wanted to ask, you said you got hauled off and punched by a 5-year-old the other day. So if you were witnessing, is that right? Did I get that right? Okay. If you were witnessing that happen, so it didn't happen to you, what advice would you have for the teacher or the adult that did happen to in that moment? So what would you have said to that teacher in the moment, or maybe not in the moment, pull them aside or whatever you'd say?
The first thing I would have done as a professional, if I was an educational consultant and I was witnessing that, I would immediately intervene, separate the two, and go tell that teacher to go take a break, go walk, or in my case, hobble. And then I would, deal with the child. But afterwards, I would say, whenever this is happening, there was nothing that you did wrong, because the antecedent for the kid's behavior was I was not giving him attention in that moment because I was doing something else. I could not have given him the attention. He was trying to force the attention. And then when I didn't give it to him, that's when he...
Yeah.
So in that moment, the best thing to do, walk off. If there's another teacher, you get another teacher and you walk off. With a self-contained, there should be multiple paras around. Leave. Go take some time off. Breathe and do what you got to do to self-regulate. That's literally it. There's nothing else you can say. Nobody likes really getting hit. You got to go see about yourself.
Yeah. But in that moment, the child's probably not really ready to be receptive to any sort of feedback or anything for them, I would imagine, either, because their brain is, feeling having the anxiety or the stress hormones or whatever it is. So yeah, it's one of those, you can't really reason with a toddler, or whatever in those moments. Or maybe you can. I don't know.
He knew.
Oh, he knew.
He knew. He's EBD, classified as EBD, so emotional behavioral disorders. And he reasoned that he wanted my attention and he wasn't getting it. And so he punched me. And the teacher's like, did you know you punched him in a very private place? And he was like, yeah.
Okay.
She was like, would you do that to your stepdad? And he was like, oh, no, we don't do that at home.
Yeah.
Oh, so you just want to punch me? Oh, okay.
Okay. All right. Wow. All right. So as we kind of conclude here, one thing that I ask every guest at the end here is, you're talking to someone who's new to education. And if you could tell them one thing to make their first year teaching or going in their second year suck less tomorrow, to be a little just better, what is the one piece of advice you'd want to give someone who's going to go work with children?
Always keep snacks. Keep snacks.
Yeah. Just to help the kids. It's also probably, you'd be amazed what you can get kids to do for a snack. Right? I had some students help me clean my room over because we just had to break down our stuff. And I'm like, you know what? I'll just order us a pizza. We'll clean the room, take all the posters, and they did all the work for me. And all it took was, a Domino's pizza.
When I tell you these kids will work, because when they're eating, they're at their least escalated. When people are eating and drinking water, they're at their most vulnerable. That's where you teach. That's where they feel safest, when they're eating and drinking water. So if you keep snacks, if you get them food, I used to have 3 boys that I would mentor, and I would get them Chick-fil-A every now and again. And we would just sit in the classroom, we just eat some Chick-fil-A. Mr. H, can I eat lunch with you? Sure. And what that did, that helped mitigate a lot of their behaviors, because I saw what was going to happen is they're going to get in trouble. But when they were in my classroom, when I knew that the students would come to me either because they wanted some food or they were just trying not to get in trouble, I knew that just by me giving them food, they knew they could come to me for safety issues, for things that would make them feel safe. So first year teachers, do not underestimate the power of having food and giving it to kids. Now, I'm not saying if they got allergies, proceed with caution, within reason, talk to the principal. But other than that, if you want to see good behavior, especially the kids who are acting out in your class, give them food.
Yeah.
Trust me.
Yeah. And I'll say a little, because first year teacher salaries are not the greatest. So a lot of times you can get like bananas and oranges and apples from like the cafeteria that kids just sort of leave behind, or they're about to, they're nearing their shelf life. I did that a couple times where I would just have get oranges and apples and stuff from the cafeteria, and you'd be surprised how many, you wouldn't be surprised, but maybe someone would be surprised how often kids are like, oh, can I have a banana? Can I have, and you're like, sure, if you need it, take it. Yeah. All right. Well, Gabriel, thank you for joining us today. This has been the Suck Less Tomorrow podcast. The book is Suck Less in the Classroom Tomorrow, out now from Routledge. If you go to my social media, you can find the discount code for that. If you enjoyed our conversation today, please share this with somebody and like it and leave a comment. Gabriel, thank you so much for being here today.
You are so welcome. It's been an honor and a privilege. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's conversation, go ahead and drop us a comment or a share. That really helps us build more than anything else you can do. You can find me online at Suck Less Tomorrow, and then you can find me at wesucklesstomorrow.com for all things Suck Less Tomorrow. Thanks again, and see you next week.
Teaching is hard, the classroom's a grind. We try our best, take it one day